Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my phantom thoughts. In this episode, a call from Jason of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast about rechargeable items, a discussion about railroading, and more tales from the world of the Dragon Slayers.
Hey, Jason here. As far as magic item recharging goes in first edition, I've heard and I kind of believe the intent is not so much for players to get them recharged, but to keep exploring and find new ones. And, how do you get all that XP? Well, finding magic items is part of that, right? So I think that's kind of the intent is that's part of the drive to keep exploring is to find new magic items to replenish the ones that you're using in your campaign. On a side note, that's one thing I like about the Holmes edition, Holmes Basic, is that even at first level, magic users can create scrolls. So even at first level, they can start making scrolls for, I think it's 100 gold pieces a level, or maybe it's 1,000, but either way, it's relatively inexpensive and pretty easy to make scrolls for your utility spells, or even you can use those scrolls to memorize your daily spells when you're exploring because, of course, in Holmes Basic, spell books are too heavy and valuable to take in the dungeon with you. But anyhow, that's all I have for you today. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Good to hear from you as always, Jason. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, looking at AD&D and looking at how high level you have to get before you can be able to create magic items on your own, and then the idea of gold for XP and spending gold for training so that you constantly have to be questing, ABQ, always be questing, right? As a drive for adventure. I definitely see that and can understand why when Holmes was writing the basic edition that he wrote that he lowered the need for level as far as leveling for spells, putting spells to scrolls and the cost of it so that adventurers could have the ability to kind of uh, refresh their magical inventory the same way they refresh their physical inventory by going out and buying more rope and another 10-foot pole to replace the one that you broke, and buying some mules or some horses so that you can transport, or wagons so you can transport more stuff. I just thought it was interesting. One of those interesting one-off things that you catch in the AD&D Dungeon Master's Handbook sometimes, where something is mentioned, it's not very specific, and it's either never mentioned again, or if it's mentioned again, it's either contradicted, like the effect that magic armor has on the weight and bulk of armor, or just never followed up on, or just as as generic a mention as it was the first time you ran across it. Just one of those quirky things that make AD&D AD&D. This week I've been thinking on the nature of railroads in RPGs. It's sort of an established standard, particularly among old school aficionados, I guess, that railroads bad, not have railroads influencing direction of PCs. And I was thinking about how far does this go? Because when you hear discussions about something like mystery solving in RPGs, where there are clues that you have to find, what aspects should you what actions should you take to make sure the PCs find the clues? And I've heard advice on that ranging from whatever solution the players come up with to the mystery or the problem or overcoming the puzzle or riddle or obstacle that they're up against, something that requires clues and context and ideas. Whatever solution they come with, that's the solution to the problem. It doesn't matter what the GM may have had or what may be in the adventure, that's what the solution is. Or making sure the clues are in several different places so there's no way they can miss them. Or having multiple different types of clues that can all lead to the same location. Or maybe not location, maybe result, maybe idea, maybe what they need to advance to the next stage of whatever it is they're trying to solve. But at what point does any adventure really, mysteries may be more prone to this, but any adventure, at what point does it have to become a railroad for there to be a solution? Particularly if there's a specific object or a specific person or specific place that the PCs need to find in order to get to whatever their ultimate goal is, or their current goal, maybe not their ultimate goal. Because once you narrow something down to a specific place or object or person or solution, then no matter how many ways you may come at it, there's only that one single point. Everything dovetails to there. And there's not a substitute for that MacGuffin. And what got me to thinking about that was I ran across, while flipping around TV, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, Pulp Action. And, I've heard a lot of claims, and I think legitimately, that Pulp Action had a lot of influence on the initial development of D&D, the ideas that went into D&D. Pulp from a fantasy standpoint, but pulp adventure in any case. And when you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, there are so many times in that movie where what is going on in the movie required at some point the path to narrow to one possibility. In order for the ark to be found, a staff of a certain length had to be placed at a certain place at a certain time of day to catch the light to show the location on a scale map so that you would know where the ark is. That's why the Nazis were digging in the wrong place, because they didn't have the right length of staff. Why didn't they have the right length of staff? Because in order to find out the length of the staff, they needed a medallion. And the medallion was, the information on the medallion was on both sides, and they only had access to the information from one side. So they had the wrong size staff. They dug in the wrong place. Indiana Jones dug in the right place. And we even see this at the beginning of the movie when Indiana Jones is questing for that idol. And we see that there was one path through the caves to the idol that led past the pit and the trap. And once you got to the idol, there was the trap on the pedestal itself. And no matter how you came about the information of the location of the idol, whether it was through research or through following someone the way the French archaeologist did, I don't remember his name. I don't remember names easily, and I didn't care about the guy, so I don't remember his name. Or you just wander around the jungle until you luck into it, eventually you're going to end up on that narrow path. So is railroad bad always the case? Or does there have to come a point where if there's going to be a coherent adventure where what you're searching for at the beginning and where you end up at the end are definitely connected, does that necessitate at some point, even if only for a small time, that there is some railroading going on, where there is really no other path to follow? So that's it. Raiders just, kicked off an idea stream, and here I am talking about it. That's why I have a podcast, right? So what do you think? I'd love to hear from you. And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. Chief, come quick. Lord Porcus the Almighty of the Raging Snouts tribe pushed back from the table laden with food. That damn ring, he muttered, is gonna see the end of me if I don't gain some more weight. As he pushed back the curtain at the opening to the cave, in the distance he could hear, "Open the gate! Open the gate!" and the sound of the gate of the barricade being lowered. He knew that voice. Thrawn, Thrawn the Moron. And as he looked out, squinting his eyes, he could make out Thrawn carrying something. And behind him was that Ragger the Clever. He was carrying something as well. He strode out the cave and down the rudimentary stone steps in front of it, past the remains of the mighty dragon, into the courtyard where his sub-chief stood with the banner out. Why would the tribal banner be out? Look! Look! And in the distance, he could see them. Small dots. Wait, were those birds? Those were awful big birds. How many were there? He began counting, then stopped, then began counting again. If only they wouldn't move around so much. 16, is that right? Thrawn and Ragger and the rest of their raiding group came rushing in through the open gate, and the orcs manning it began to close it up. Look, Chief! Look, Chief! Lunch! And he and the rest of his group held up what they had. Large eggs and large birds. Well, the front part was birds. There was a beak and there were talons and feathers, but the backside looked like some sort of quadruped. Moat the Wise came wandering by, chewing on some kind of drumstick. He took a look at the bird thing. Hippogriff. Well, I guess that explains those. And he looked up at the dots that were dots no longer. So, as some of you may know that have been listening for a while, one of the ways I've been filling out the world of the Dragon Slayers has been following around the various tribes and creatures that have been moving around the landscape as the result of random encounters and seeing where they go and where they settle. But what I've also been doing is, once they settle, is seeing, do they have random encounters as well? And in this case, the Raging Snouts, who have made their home at the cave where the dragon was killed, rolled up a random encounter of hippogriffs, and a lot of them. And so it was a pre-dawn encounter, so that would be toward the end of the orcs' day, really, because they don't function well in light. So in the entry, it said that they would, well, the reaction roll was hostile immediate action. And the entry of hippogriffs in the monster manual says that they will attack immediately if someone is threatening their nests, which contain valuable eggs or fledglings. So I said, some orc raiding party out for foraging for food has run across one of their nests and is taking stuff. And I'm going to see how this plays out. Now, the orcs, because they aren't above ground, they have a couple ballistas mounted up at the towers on the corners, and they have 2 catapults, according to the monster manual. It doesn't say whether those are light or heavy, so I've gone with one of each. So the first thing we need to do is roll for surprise, even though story-wise I see them coming. Is it going to be a surprise? Are the hippogriffs going to be surprised when they see this mass of orcs in a barricade? All right, so for the hippogriffs, they are surprised. 2 segments. The orcs are not surprised. All right, so the orcs will get a couple of surprise segments to react. Now, the hippogriffs, they are semi-intelligent. I'm not sure whether that means that morale would not apply to them or not. I don't think it would, but in this case, since they're looking to get back their eggs and fledglings, they're just going to fight to their doom, or until the orcs drop everything and retreat, into the cave or scattering around. So the orcs will have to deal with some kind of morale checks once they take some losses, but there's well over 200 orcs in this camp. They've got arrows, they've got spears, they've got a handful of them have some throwing axes, and yeah, we'll just see how this goes. So let's look at the encounter distance. Since they're surprised, we're going to subtract 2 from it because of the distance. Well, normally in like hills and forested area, there would be a negative to it, but since they're flying through clear air, we're not going to give any negative. It's going to be 6d4 straight, minus 2 for the surprise. 3, Plus 2, that's 5. Plus 3, that's 8. Plus 1, that's 9. Plus 3, that's 12. Plus 2, that's 14. All right, so 14 inches. Now that means that they are already inside the range of the catapults, so the catapults will not get to fire this time. A couple of other quick notes. Number one, because of their maneuverability rating, once they fly past something, it's going to take them a couple of turns of flying, a couple of rounds of flying to get around. And at the end of that, as they're flying, they fly at 36 inches, so they will be able to be shot at by catapults if they're coming from the right direction. Right now, since they're chasing, these orcs are kind of coming head on. And so let's see what direction the ballista can be maneuvered around to shoot at them. Let's see what what direction the catapult's putting in. The heavy catapult is pointing, I'm going to do a D8. That's an 8, so I'm going to say that's being pointed in the sort of the opposite direction from where they're coming from. And the light catapult is pointing in their direction, directly at them, that R1. The other thing is, the ring the chief was grumbling about is the ring of Gax. Now, when I have creatures, especially intelligent creatures, I'll roll up the treasure ahead of time to see if it's something they could use. And in this case, the orcs rolled up an artifact. So, the ring of Gax, and one of the powers that I rolled for it was weight loss 5 to 30 pounds. And the way the ring of Gax works is it has a 9-faceted stone. It has 9 powers or effects, because some of them are negative effects. And when it is put on, or if you're asleep with it and you wake up, it turns itself to a random facet. And then you have to turn it to use other abilities. So I rolled to see when the chief got up this morning what was there, and it was weight loss 5 to 30 pounds. And I rolled up a 20-pound weight loss for him. So he's having to stay hungry. And since they've been traveling for a while, and I've ruled that the chief has had enough time to kind of learn what all the powers are, or what, to interpret what they do, even if he doesn't know specifically what the powers are. And the other thing about that is, while wands and staves tell you what level they operate at, staves at 8th level of ability, wands at 6th level. The artifacts don't say anything about it. I figured it would have to be more. So what I've been doing in those situations is I figure that if a staff is 8, an artifact is going to be at least a 9, and then I'm rolling a d6. And so for what I rolled for the Ring of Gax was 14th level of ability. And as far as the ballista and catapults go, catapults fire once every 4 rounds. Ballista can fire 1 every 4, 1 every 2 if it's fully crewed. I'm ruling that they keep it fully crewed. They've got it mounted on the walls of their towers so it can pivot in multiple directions. And so they can deal with it from there. And so they've got it ready to go. So they're going to get a shot off, and then they can go every other one. So for the surprise round, they'll get 1, but the rest they won't. And the way that works is, it's interesting. Ballista treat everything as armor class 10, but then you have different conditions that can affect it. It also gets a +4 to hit, but then there are things like how fast it's moving, what the weather is like, and it affects the other things. So the ballista will be firing overall at a -1, but it's going to be aiming at armor class 10. Since it's being operated by these 1-hit die creatures, it would need a 9 to hit. So with the -1, it's going to need to roll a 10 or better. The catapult and both the catapults need to roll a 20. So we'll start off with the 2 ballista shots. So fire 1, a 3, that's a miss. Fire 2, a 7, that's a miss. So both of those miss. And the remainder of, I think, the first surprise segment will be the orcs organizing in the interior of their fort and making sure they have adequate, that everybody that has some sort of ranged weapon has it on hand. There's some heavy crossbows and some longbows, and then there's a bunch of spears and hand axes if it comes down to that. But I'm going to say that they have groups on the walls with some of their regular bowmen on the walls. Longbows can fire twice a turn, heavy crossbows once every other turn. So after using the first surprise segment to prepare, the orcs in the second surprise segment used their bows to great effect, both the longbows and the heavy crossbows, managing a total of 18 hits against the 16 hippogriffs that only managed to kill one but injured several others. In the first round, in the round one, the orcs got initiative, and their first round of longbow fire resulted in 8 hits, killing another hippogriff. The chief used his ring to cast haste on one of the ballista crews, as well as 10 nearby longbowmen, or long orcmen, I guess it would be. The hippogriffs divided up, with 6 swooping in to attack on the ground inside the compound, while the others moved to engage the bowmen on the walls. The orcs inside the fort elected to essentially play lawn darts, firing off a bunch of spears and hand axes up in the air, resulting in 35 hits, which killed all 6 of the hippogriffs which were swooping in, but also resulting in 12 hits against their own kind, killing 3 and also hitting the chieftain, who was none too happy. And I can only imagine that it was probably Thrawn the moron that did it, and he probably looked over the chief with a little look on his face, whatever the equivalent is for orcs. Up on the walls, the hippogriffs killed 5 orcs, but that left an opening for longbows to open fire. This resulted in 8 hits, which killed 2 additional hippogriffs. In the second round, the hippogriffs killed 4 orcs, which again left openings for bowmen and for some with battle axes for those still engaged in melee, resulting in 29 hits against the hippogriffs and 4 of them being killed. From that point on, it was all melee action, battle axes versus hippogriff claws and beaks. The next round had 1 hippogriff being killed, leaving 1 remaining. The remaining hippogriff lasted an additional 7 rounds and killed 7 orcs, but eventually was dispatched. So the orcs killed the hippogriffs. They killed 16 hippogriffs to the cost of 15 orcs. That's a pretty good price. And they find kind of dropped amongst they find that, and eventually the orcs go back to the nests and they recover 2 eggs total. Well, they keep 2 eggs and 8 fledglings, which are worth some money or could be trained, but they find other eggs and fledglings and they eat them. So the orcs survive without a lot of damage from those hippogriffs. That was interesting. Hope you found it as interesting as I did. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voice message on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.